I'm good. Stay
Good.
after Halloween hit a little different this year.
Oh, I bet. So was this the first Halloween that your little one was able to like walk and trick or treat and all the things?
Yeah, we ended up using his stroller anyway because of the rain.
Oh,
But yeah, like the first time that he could like hold a bucket and
oh.
participate because he was born in September, so last year we were hunkered down still, like freshly
Mhm.
postpartum. So this felt like the first one that we could like that everyone could feel good and have fun.
I love it. And did he, okay, so we're talking about boundaries tonight. Did he try to go in? So my one of my daughters, she her first or second Halloween, I can't remember which one it was. She would literally like they would open the door and she'd be like, "Hi, I'm coming in."
Oh,
So we're like, "No, that's not how that works."
that's
Did
so cute, right?
did your son did he think like, "Oh, it's time for me to like walk in," or anything like that?
I don't think so. He was like bundled up and he was pretty chill. I think he was just kind of along for the ride. He really liked all the decorations, like anything that had lights or like the pumpkins. He would like smile at the pumpkins. Like, that's kind of a scary pumpkin, but I'm glad you're smiling, buddy.
He's like, "Ooh, that's
Yeah,
interesting."
that's different. Yeah, yeah.
I love
It was
it.
fun.
Oh, that's so sweet. It did rain, so we did the where we did a few streets in our neighborhood, and then because we had ordered pizza, and we had some friends that came over that brought some food as well, and but the pizza delivery was running really behind, and so they delivered it, and we were like, well, let's just go ahead and go to some houses and then come back and eat, and it was like maybe 45 minutes of trick or treating, and then
Yeah.
we came back here and ate. When we went back out, it was legit pouring. We were soaked.
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest trick or treating.
Yeah, every year, like without fail. Halloween is wet. The day before is like beautiful, and then yeah,
Yes.
little
Yes. I
little
know. I know. Well, I'm so excited. This is our first live together
yeah.
with Bethany and I. And Bethany is one of our founding members at Nectarfull. And so she jumped in trusting the Lord's journey for us all pretty quick right away when we first were starting up. And I just love the sweetness and the energy and the encouragement that you bring to the team. And you're a coach for us in that way, I think.
Aw, thanks. It's a mutual affection and benefit, and yeah, it's such an incredible team. Just
Oh,
yeah, it's so life-giving to be part of. So
yes, yes, I agree. I agree. What so what is a boundaries coach? So what got you started into boundaries coaching?
yeah, yeah. So I started doing after I got my coaching training and all of that. I was just doing like general life coaching and kind of trying to figure out. I knew I wanted to work with women. I knew I wanted to work with Christian women. My background is as a professional dancer, and so had like gotten to just hear all sorts of stories across the spectrum for years, and conversations in green rooms and things where like you just end up having a heart to heart, and I really wanted to figure out a way to help people in like a really practical way. So then I ended up going to seminary, and so I felt like that gave me like felt like I had some holes in like my like biblical foundation. But then I also really wanted like practical kind of ministry things. Um, so all of that kind of gelled together. Then once I was life coaching, um, as I worked with people, it just kind of started to naturally come to the surface where it was like, oh, that kind of seems like maybe a boundaries issue, or like people who reached out even specifically saying, hey, can you help me like have healthier boundaries, have better boundaries? Here's this hard thing that's going on. And that like I got so excited about those became like my favorite clients to work with. So I was like, okay, I wanna dive into this even deeper. And as I did that too, realized, oh, this is a huge part of my story. Like this is a huge part of what like areas that the Lord has grown me in, and so it just became very like became very clear, and exciting to help people with that too. Like there's so much hope. Um,
Yeah. It's like, well, those self-imposed expectations, right? Sometimes I feel like we need boundaries from ourselves before we can like help establish boundaries for other people, like not getting too much into our space. Do you feel like that was ever a struggle? Like your own person boundaries with your like with yourself?
yeah, yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
definitely. I think so. I would identify as a recovering people pleaser from
Yes.
that. Um,
We need a
I
club.
think,
Can we have a club that
yeah,
does?
I think a lot of people can relate to that, and of
Yes.
course, we want people to enjoy us, like being around us, all
Mhm.
of those things. So, like on the one hand, it's not a bad thing to be even like others focused and all of that, right? But I think when you take it to an extreme, then it can become unhealthy and it becomes
Mhm.
unhealthy pattern, and we don't know ourselves anymore.
Yeah.
And we are also, just as we love those around us that are made in the image of God, and we want to like enjoy and delight and draw all of those good things in other people, like the Lord put that in us as well. And so I think that that was a big shift for me when I started to kind of grasp that a little bit more. Like I am also fearfully and wonderfully made, and I can get to know myself, and I have preferences and unique strengths and things like that that like it's a if that's how the Lord made me, then the best gift I have to give to the world is to be who he made me. And so then learning, and I had to like learn who that was.
Yeah.
Who am I? So yeah, I mean, I think a huge encouragement to anyone who's like, I think I need better boundaries in my life, or I want to, I don't know, even just start kind of be curious about what healthy boundaries look like. I would say get to know
Mhm.
yourself first.
Mm.
Like give yourself the time to kind of, even in like fun, small, safe ways, like what are my preferences when I, one for me was like when I go out to eat, do I just like, what if I just ordered what actually sounded good to me?
Instead
Because
of the, like, lowest calorie, smallest meal that, like,
yeah,
nobody.
or like cheapest, or and
Yeah.
there's of course there's things to consider, but like when there aren't limitations, or even within whatever those limitations are, like I'm gonna get what sounds good to me and not what I think maybe the rest of the table wants a bite of,
Oh,
or things like that, or like the cheapest thing on the menu, so I don't want to be a burden to anybody.
yes,
uh,
yes.
I think there's a difference between being like conscientious and being like
Mhm,
self-erasing.
mhm.
Those are very different
That's a
things.
really I love that. I mean, just being, like, self-aware versus erasing yourself, like, that's I
Mm,
had never thought about it that way.
mm,
As far as that, I definitely have been a people pleaser myself, and where you're like, "Oh, like, do I have to make a decision, or do I have to do this, or, go somewhere just because that's where everybody else wants to go, even though I'm not comfortable going there, or I'm not,
right.
I know I won't enjoy it." I s my I had my best girlfriends recently were going to the, uh, Justin Timberlake
Oh,
concert,
fun
and
concert.
they're like,
Yeah.
"Surprise, we want you to go with us." And friends who love me and wanted me to go with them. I love you, even though I'm outing our story right now. But um, I was like, oh no. Like I love them dearly, and
Yeah.
I would typically like do anything right that they would want to do because they're just my closest friends. But I was picturing myself at the Justin Timberlake concert, and yes, I know he's very talented and he's very popular, but totally just not my thing, right?
Mm,
And I was
yeah.
like, I will be so miserable.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not no, and it felt like the most awkward thing ever to say no, you know?
Oh,
I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, no, I'm not going." And,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, it's like making those decisions, it's like even if they seem like trivial things can, like, build up our confidence in being able to set boundaries. Have you had a client that you felt like had a really hard boundary? Like, what was the hardest boundary you feel like you've had to walk through?
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I think anytime family's involved,
Mhm,
it's
mhm,
hard because, like, of course you love them, and like it's just that dynamic can be really really difficult for a lot of people. But I had one client whose um, mother was in memory care,
mm,
and so but they had a history of a really hard relationship. And so then when you just have that combination of, like, you have all of the existing patterns that have been there lifelong, but
mm,
she's also losing her, like, mental capacity.
mm,
And so there were just some really hard dynamics with that. She's like, I feel terrible not being, like, at her beck and call, but also for my, like, health and sanity, I need some space or some, like, pacing to when I am
mm.
available to her. Um, and so that's always a hard one to
Yeah.
navigate. Um, and I think a big thing with boundaries too is it's not like cookie cutter. So what makes sense for one person's scenario
Mhm,
is not going to be the same in everyone's. And even, like, the freedom we have to, for this month, here's what I need the boundary to be, and it might be different next month.
mhm,
And, like, we get to discern and exercise wisdom, and, like, constantly be seeking the Lord and asking, like,
mhm.
caring people in our life that will, like, remind us and encourage us and speak truth and, like, help us navigate things. So it doesn't have to be like a one and done, like, all right, I have zeroed in on this one right answer and that's what it's going to
Yeah.
be for the rest of my life. That puts so much pressure. That puts so much pressure on it. um, so yeah, I think an encouragement um, would be, like, if there is something that you feel like you want to try, you can try it, and you're going to get
Yeah,
feedback, and
yeah.
you can adjust as needed.
Mm. How do you feel about people who try boundaries? And I love that idea, right? You try something and see how it fits, but maybe those around them are having a hard time with the change in who they are or how they're um how the change in their presence in their life has impacted them, the other people. How what would you tell people who are going through that?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that's one of the biggest hesitations to setting a boundary
Yep.
is
I guess so.
they're not gonna like it,
Yeah.
or it's gonna make things worse, actually.
Mhm.
Or I mean, it
Mhm.
can be any number of things, any number of challenges. So I think that's why it's really important that you've done and are doing the work of knowing yourself and knowing what you need. Because as that becomes clear, that's going to help you um, enforce your boundaries.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then when you do, especially if it's a tough scenario and you need to, like, set something that's very very clear, maybe cut and dry, maybe really difficult, um, that you've also spent some time thinking about, like, why am I doing this? What is my hope or my goal? Um,
Mm.
and coming back to that again and again, or even having a trusted person that's going to help remind you of that too.
Mhm.
Um, whether that's a spouse, friend, coach, somebody that you have a support system, especially
Mhm.
when they're more challenging dynamics. But I think that's, yeah, just that foundation of, like, who am I? Who am I called to be? How do I want to interact with the world around me?
Yeah.
Because I think that's really what boundaries answer the question. Like, because we can't control other people. Like,
Yes.
how do I want to respond? So when X, Y, and Z happens,
Mm.
I
Mhm.
will fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And that's your boundary. So it's not, I need everyone else to get their act together so I
Right.
like that. Um, but it's really how you want to respond, and
Mm.
um,
Mhm.
that might not always be received, um, but
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
you know who you need to be, and so that's going to help you in moments like that.
Mm. I love that. I think that ties in so well to what you said earlier about how it's like understanding who you are and who you were made to be. And when you set boundaries, like, and check in on yourself in that way, like what a cool way to like remind yourself constantly of like who you are, who you were made to
Mm,
be. I love that.
mhm,
I love that a lot.
mhm.
What can someone expect if they decide that they are looking for someone to coach them? So they come to Bethany to get amazing coaching. What is a session like you with? Or
Yeah,
session with you like? Sorry, I said that wrong.
like oh, yeah, yeah. You know what? It made sense in my mind.
You're like, I translate, Angela.
Have you ever seen those where it's like a sentence and, like, the letters are jumbled except for, like, the first and last ones, and our
Oh,
brains can,
yes,
like, still
yes,
still
that's
read it? I feel like it was
bizarre.
a sentence like that,
It
yeah.
totally
That's
Oh, that was
great.
awesome.
Yeah, so coaching with me, typically what we do is I like to take a holistic approach. So I'm gonna send you a like pretty thorough intake form, and we're gonna zero in on a few specific goals that you have. But then what we're also gonna do is each session I'm gonna teach you a like a skill or a tool kind of at the beginning, that applies to either getting to know yourself, some self reflection, or like some structured things like here's how to communicate a boundary, here's how you know if you need a boundary, things like that. Um, so, usually, like the first 10 minutes or so, we'll spend or we'll like check in, say, hey, how's your day going? And then the first 10 minutes, then we'll go over a skill. And then the rest of the time, we're applying either that skill or jumping into something else that specifically um, pertains to your scenario. So a specific scenario you need help with a boundary, we can hash all of that out and get you prepped and ready to do that in your life, or just continue to equip you with healthy mindsets and tools and things. So even if there's not like if you're like, I think this is kind of a general area that I want to get better in, but I don't have like a dire crisis right now.
Mhm.
um, then it's coaching is still going to be super beneficial to you. And if you are in a dire crisis as well, it's going to be really beneficial to you. Um, yeah, yeah. So I get super excited about equipping, but I also get really excited about just the what's the flavor of the day that you need
Yeah.
some support with because stuff always comes up.
Right? And it's like, no matter I say that all the time about like our coaching, our team of coaches at Nectarfull in general. Like we all have our like passion projects. Like you said, like you just love when people realize that they have to set boundaries. So you knew that that was kind of like your your passion purpose, you know, for coaching. But I love how coaching can encourage and support and partner in all aspects of life in any area that we feel stuck. And I think it's been so fun to be a part of this team and just see how that happens, right? Like how the unstuckness, you know, the methods to identify where you're stuck and how to get unstuck are all the same for the most part, right? Like as far as like how they impact you or how they're restricting you or how they're keeping you from moving forward. And so it's like the
Mhm.
fundamental ways are all about, you know, those questions and those action plans and those goals and those realization moments of realization. And it's so fascinating. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's so good, and I just love how like growth in one area is going to impact growth in other areas of your life. So whether do you want to grow in boundaries or some help with parenting or like any choose your topic like as you become healthier,
Mhm.
stronger in one area that's going to just benefit so much of your life.
It is. Well, this time has gone by so fast. I can't even believe how much we've already covered. Is there anything else that you want anybody to know about coaching or about coaching with you or boundaries before we head out for tonight?
Yeah. I think just one other thing that popped across my mind too, I think, mostly tonight we talked about like boundaries in relationship to like in relationships, in
Oh,
relation
yeah.
with other people. But I think something I've been thinking about this week, especially as a mom feeling overstimulated, you know,
Yeah.
like what do boundaries for myself look like? What
Mhm.
do how do I, and again, that's part of like the getting to know yourself part, like, oh, I am feeling kind of overwhelmed right now and I need to, you know, take a minute or whatever it may be
Mhm.
that's gonna like help me be grounded and
Yes.
like safe and stable again. Um, just within myself and instead of like neglecting, like shoving those thoughts away, like being curious about them and because I think there's a lot of wisdom that are
Yeah.
that parts of us have. Um,
Mhm.
so even yeah, even if that maybe resonates with some people too, where they're like, actually, like I have pretty healthy relationships in my life, like things are pretty good, but maybe I and maybe it is that people pleaser part. Maybe I am kind of neglecting myself
Mhm.
a bit and could use some skills in like learning how to notice and know what I need.
Yes.
Um, so I just want to put that out there for people too. Sometimes it's internal as
I
well.
love that so much, and I feel like I've done that sometimes and, like, where and, like, you sent me an email. I won't obviously share, like, what it was, but, like, you sent me an email that was
Yeah.
probably really hard for you to send, right? And
Yeah.
I've sent emails like that too, where you're like, "I need this," right? And I've said, like, I have moments where, like, I'll send an email or a text or something like that, and I can feel it in the pit of my stomach. I'm
Yeah.
like, "I don't really wanna say this, but I know I need it." Like,
Mhm.
bizarre how hard sometimes to send those messages or ask the question or just say, I noticed something or whatever it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
even to our kids, I feel like sometimes I'm like, it's hard for me to say, like, nope, I need this.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, and so often I found too, like it's usually received better than I think it will be. Or it's like received with like love and care. And then, oh, now people know that I'm struggling and they can actually like come alongside me and
Check in.
care for
Yeah.
me in a more specific way. And like
Mhm.
I was preventing them from being able to do
Mm,
that. And
yeah.
um yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I love that. That's such a good reminder.
Hmm.
Self boundaries.
Yes.
Well, for anybody watching this, if you need to set some boundaries or you just want an amazing coach in your life to walk with you, Bethany is so great. All of the ladies at Nectarfull are just beyond amazing and now accepting new clients. So it's coaching.nectarfull.com is where you can schedule that, or just go to nectarfull.com and we'd love to serve you and encourage you and just have you in the fam. So,
Yeah.
well, Bethany, thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to the next time we can do this.
Yeah. Thank Thanks, Angela. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Bye, everybody.